Hi,
Hey,
everyone.
hey
How's
Sandra.
it going? Good.
Good. Thank you so
Oh, I'm so
much.
glad.
I can't
Me too. I'm
wait.
so glad we could connect. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yeah, so thank you so much for your understanding and flexibility. I was traveling for work at the time and I was in Paris, so we were a few hours ahead, but it was towards the end of the conference. And you know how those go. You're just always on the run and meetings after meetings and then just talking to people all over the world and they're bringing their germs. So
100%. I just got back from Bogota and I am finally on the recovery side of things, but I came home sick as well. So I 100% understand and no problem at all. We want you feeling well for this.
Oh, and yeah. So for those of you who don't realize this, I actually know about CharmVerse and connected to Sandra from a mutual friend, Chris. And I know that you guys were hosting some cool events out of Bogota.
Yeah,
That's
we had a
great.
great time. Chris is amazing. We're super happy to have him on our team. Yeah, we hosted a brunch that was amazing, and then we got to go to a bunch of events together um, as a team. It was cool. We got to have about half of our team out there together, which was just really nice to be in real life with people and working around the table in the morning and having coffee. It really kind of unites that bond. It's fantastic.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I will never go back to in person, like mandatory in person. But when you do get those opportunities to have those kind of experiences, it just really amplifies what you guys are building async and globally, right?
It definitely does. It definitely does. So before we jump in, I'm going to do my quick little CharmVerse spiel here. And then we'll dig into the meat of what you're doing over at her house because it's a fantastic project and I'm really excited to spread the word. For those of you who don't know CharmVerse, we are a Web3 operations platform handling docs, tasks, bounties, proposals, and votes. It's a place for team contributors to coordinate day-to-day work, sign in with crypto wallets, and unlock workspaces with tokens and NFTs. It brings together onboarding, bounty management, proposals, project trackers, and data repositories all in one place. I use it daily for my workflow. I suggest you do too. This is our Women in Web3 series, and the point of this series is to feature and promote badass women that are making waves in Web3. So certainly one of those badass women is Caroline Geraghty of Her House. So really happy again to welcome you on today.
Thank you, and kudos to you for actually saying my name
Oh,
right. It's, it's not easy, so I am very impressed. Thank you for
I'm
that.
not going to lie. I definitely Googled it. Um, in my head, I was like, it's Geraghty or it's Geraghty or something. And
Mm-hmm.
then I definitely Googled it. And that's my biggest concern is like, that's my dog. Um, yeah, it's just pronouncing people's names wrong. So I'm so glad I got it correct.
Well, thank you for that. I think especially because like with the global climate and like there's just so much like culture is constantly like shifting and intermingling. There's a lot of new names that I'm learning about. So thank you for taking time like that.
Of course, the least I can do. So yeah, let's dig into Her House. So tell our listeners what you're doing over there because it's very cool.
Thank you. So, Her House is really a collective of founders, and we're building out a Web3 ecosystem of women and non binary builders collaborating to launch and scale growth. And what's really important about this is one, we're navigating a male dominated space, right? So, it's tech, it's startups, it's Web3. And so being able to find those connections and building on those relationships for, support and network with other women can be so impactful and powerful. And another point for that is like, we just really are looking for ways to ensure that, women and people of color and marginalized communities have have impact in this space because before that We see a lot of industries that have systemic problems that like move from one iteration to another. And we have this really like important and fascinating point in the history of the internet, essentially, right? Or like even tech overall, where like it's the first time where people are can get like first in on the door that normally wouldn't have access.
100%. I was just going to say the same thing. This is such a new industry that now is the time, right, that we can really make that impact and get women and the binary community in here and give them a place in here before we go too much further. So super important project. Is Her House a DAO? I saw in the manifesto that DAO creation's on the roadmap. And I'm curious if you've already done that, and if it will be a separate entity or if you're converting Her House into a DAO.
So we are still workshopping that. That is definitely one of the fun parts, right? As like you are in a new industry, and they're just so, and it evolves every day. Like every moment, there are there are new ways to leverage blockchain technology, and people are still figuring out best practices, right? And more importantly, like what works best for us and our community members. What we really are is, because we support founders and builders, they have their own communities, right? We work with SheFi, which promotes decentralized finance education for women, and so they can like have a great like foundation to like really get started in that space. And then we also have worked with like FWB and Boys Club. We've done events with them, and we've worked with the Bell Block, which is actually Mastercard's internal women community. So it's really interesting, and we're still working that out. And the best part about that is we're surrounded by other builders and other communities, so we get to learn from each other.
Definitely. Why did you decide working towards a DAO format?
Honestly, it's kind of just what everyone else is doing, right? Um, it's a popular form of organizations in Web3, but I'm sure you guys know this best. Is like there are different kinds of DAOs, right? Like there's social DAOs, there are governance DAOs, there are like finance DAOs and things like that. We are still, I mean, we've Her House is basically like approaching our first year birthday, right? And that's really exciting for us. Our core team members, we have very recently just started kind of like building that out, and we're just in a really good place right now. So we don't necessarily want to rush into anything that we need to backtrack. The best way to like really succeed in the space is to always be looking for use cases that are applicable to like what you're building, and then kind of like molding it in a way that again like best serves like your team and your mission and the community that you're serving.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I'm getting more and more curious about DAOs, because you are finding more of them forming. Like you said, there's a lot to figure out with DAOs, right? So I think we're going to start a Twitter Space series on people from DAOs to kind of tell us what they love about it, what doesn't work so well, what could be done better, so we can all learn from that, and hopefully they'll just get stronger and stronger and more popular. So, how did Her House first come to fruition?
So I really love this story. I met Candace separately. We were on Clubhouse together. We had done some collaborations, and so like I reconnected with her and actually met her in person at NFT NYC last fall. And from there, like again, it's hard to find other women in this space. So I was just really excited to find somebody else to talk to about NFTs and like Web3 and all that. And even just that the industry that we're in general, right? Like there's not a lot of people in my inner circle back then or even right now that that were really familiar with the space. So I kind of had to like go, teach myself, learn on my own, and then find other people who were really interested in it as well, right? Um, so like we had connected, and then Candace had connected with our other co-founder Alexa on a different event, and it was really successful and they were really excited. And so they had planned on doing something for Art Basel in Miami, and Candace had reached out to me, and I was like, oh, that's great. That's really exciting for you. We're actually looking to do something. Maybe we can work together, right? And and so I hopped in on my first call on Saturday. And by Friday, we were on a mega yacht with an incredible panel of women in Web3 that I helped curate and co-produce with Avery, who's the president of Vayner3, Gabby Goldberg, who's really prolific in the DeFi space, Jen, who at the time was a community manager for Playboy NFT, and M&A, who is a two-time Emmy winner stop motion artist. And she actually recently sold an NFT for about 20 grand. And so like this incredible panel and this event came together in 6 days. And it's just like once we realize that like, hey, we really have something here, we decided to build on it. And especially to the women who had attended the event, we kept hearing the same thing. Like they were all really interested in it, they're learning about it, and they just wanted like, I guess, like guidance or insights on like what the next step would be, right? Because like, yeah, it's great that you're learning about Web3, but like, what do you take with that information? How do you become involved? How do you get a job in it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, wow. First of all, I love that story too. That group of women is very impressive. So cool. And I feel the same way. I mean, whenever I have these women focused events that I go to, you just leave feeling empowered and invigorated in the space, and everyone's ready to collaborate and network. And it really just creates this beautiful, safe space. And it sounds like that's exactly what Her House is doing. It's the safe space where women can learn the tools that they need, but also get them involved in Web3 and actually apply this knowledge. So well done. I love it. Really, again, happy to be featuring Her House today. So to that, you guys focus a lot on community and education as part of your core values. And you do events both online and in real life. So tell us more about what these events entail.
So again, we're coming up to our first birthday and we're still working things out, right? So we had this really great epiphany that there are, to build on our core values is we want to upskill, we want to encourage women to upskill Web3 skills, right? Provide a professional network that can help advance women in the Web3 space as like they want to, and then also provide resources for founders. And so our events are built around those core values, and we've basically have narrowed down what our core events are going to look like. So we have a girls' night in, which is like a more intimate setting. And it's not necessarily about networking per se, like meeting new people and things like that. It's really about focusing on the friendships that are part of like holistic success in this space, but beyond, right? Like you want to be able to have friends who genuinely care about who you are as a person and not necessarily what you do in this space or like how can you help them, right? And today this has been something that we've been working on. We launched our inaugural session of Who's Hiring in Web3. And basically what we've set up with our two partners today, CollabWorks and Passenger, which are Web3 focused recruiting platforms, is we've set up 15-minute warm introductions to decision makers and hiring teams for Web3 companies. That is like a huge thing that people don't necessarily know how to navigate. Either they're just not natural networkers or they don't know enough people in this space, right? To be able to make, to get recommendations or know what kind of jobs are available out there. So we've cut that out. We set it up for you. You sign up on the Calendly link. We send you information about the company, the roles that are available, and it's just 15-minute, really quick, get to know each other. So what's great about it is if you are ready to get hired, it's basically like an informal interview, right? And if you guys click, then the odds of you moving on in that interview process like increases dramatically, right? Because it's all about warm connections. And then two, what's great about it is like if you're not necessarily ready for a job, the hiring managers will actually give feedback on your resume or like the inner, like how you're presenting yourself in this warm connection call.
That's great. Yeah, it's really just preparing people, either if they're ready or if they're not, and just getting them set up for their next step.
Yep.
What about the educational portion? What does that look like?
Uh, so I would actually like to shout out Mila, who is in the audience. She actually booked times for today, and I'm just really excited. Thank you, Mila, for being here. Um, so for education, again, one of our core values at her house is we really want to lean into partnerships. Part of our ethos is that women who join her house get to show up exactly as they are. Too often in startup space, like you're always wearing a million hats, right? So you're not necessarily leaning into your zone of genius or doing what you love to do, right? But like at her house, we want you to show up as your best self, doing exactly what you want to do. So when it comes to education, we reach out to our partners so then they can fill in those blanks for us. Because I while I do enjoy talking about Web3 and sharing Web3 101, that's not necessarily what I want to be doing all the time anymore, right? Like I've evolved to doing other things. And that's basically what's happened with our core team as well. What's amazing about that is that there are plenty of women focused, organizations and DAOs that do that beautifully. So then we're able to bring them in. And then, so that's like, Web3 101. And then we've also partnered with protocols to host events as well. So then we have speakers from the protocols come in, speak about their protocols, like what advantages it is to build on those protocols, and they bring in their experts, right? So what's really great about being a collective of founders and partnerships is that we don't necessarily need to do all of that ourselves. We're able to tap in to people who already do it incredibly well.
That's perfect. And it helps you build your community. You're kind of sharing your community and bringing other people in from others, and all working towards a common goal too of bringing women into this space. That being said, what have you found to be the most effective way to grow your community? Is it through that, or what are some other avenues you found to be helpful?
So really the in-person events are fantastic. We just honestly do a great job about it. We find great partners. So during NFT NYC, we partnered with Playground and we hosted a special series. It was like an unconference called Playhouse. So it was Playground and her house. It was great. So they provided the space and we were able to provide the programming. And, like it was a great opportunity for people who were feeling really overwhelmed or didn't have tickets or weren't necessarily, interested in the conference itself, but more about networking and building on those, deeper connections with other people in this space. So you can never go wrong with in-person events, right? And honestly, even though the warm intro session that we did today, it was the first one. We got amazing feedback from that, and so like we had about 30 spots. We filled all 30 spots. And then we had a bunch of women who were, sliding into our DMs saying that the spots were filled. And so we set up a resume drop, right? So we had about, I want to say like, I probably spoke to like 20 women. So that's 50 women right there who were able to be part of their Web3 adventure. So you can't beat the ROI on that.
Absolutely. I was going to say back to the in-person events and that brunch we hosted in Bogota. it's so nice to just, you've made all these connections online, but really seeing these people's faces and hearing their voices and just, just things that get lost online. It's so nice to meet those people and solidify those relationships. I also like what you were saying earlier about, it's not necessarily all business. It's really about building these relationships and actually caring about these people and them becoming friends, and becoming a social network as well. Doesn't all have to be business. And you never know where it will lead in this industry either. But I've met some really fantastic people, and just being able to host this series of these amazing women and these amazing projects, I feel honored to be able to talk to all of you and learn as well. So
Well,
um,
what's really great about this time and space, bear market, build market, we like to say it's an opportunity to circle the wagons, because the people who are here like purely for financial gain and to like flip and all that. And, even not to say that rug pulls aren't still happening, right? Like that's just that's just part of like any budding industry, right? There's always going to be people who take advantage. But it's like the people who are really interested in building and, innovating in the space are the ones who are here right now, right? Like a majority, I would like to think. And so taking the time, exactly what you're saying, is like to get to know each other here, because the odds are if you're building when it's not necessarily the best time to build, then you're going to be here when the seeds that you plant come to fruition, and then you get to enjoy those, right? And then you get to enjoy that with like the people that you were building with along the way. So that's what's really exciting about it.
I agree. I agree. And you also collaborate with a lot of women-led initiatives. Do you want to give a shout out to a couple of those? I know you mentioned some that, you're bringing in to help you with your education, but any others you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, so actually my PFP is with Crypto Venus. I'm actually the head of partnerships and culture there. So what we do is we're an artist guild, and it's where fine art meets like, oh god, what is it called, like derivative tech, essentially. So I don't know if like you can zoom in on my PFP, but all those assets are actually hand painted by the artist Erica Riling. And then she was able to take those assets, scan them, and then digitally manipulate them and turn them into 300 traits, which is like really exciting and fun. And it's definitely opened my eyes to appreciating the art, I guess, like aspects of NFTs and Web3. And I didn't really have that beforehand. And that's something that I was like really excited to uncover. And then the second project, that were, well, I mean, it's not really projects, but we partnered with Passenger and Collabwork, which are Web3 recruitment platforms, and the founders are both women in the Her House collective, and they're absolutely fantastic. And if you check out my banner, it's SheFi. There's a lot of cross pollination there, of course, because they do provide like a great foundation to learn more about decentralized finance. And the tagline for that is that finance is feminine, and I love that. And that Bitcoin is a mother token, essentially, which I also love too. It just really empowers women to realize their true power. And I think, when it comes to being in, finance or tech or startup spaces, it's not it's not necessarily encouraged, right, for women to be here. There's different kinds of hurdles that we have to navigate. So again, having other women in this space who can really appreciate your that experience on a personal level makes such a big difference.
Agreed. Yeah. Um, so you folks are working on a lot of stuff over there. I just couldn't get over it going through my research, just lots and lots of projects. And I wanted to pick your brain about a few of them. So first we'll start with HQ, which is Her Quarters, which you tag as Google for Web3 women. Tell me what this is and what it means.
So You know what? It is something that is on our roadmap. We are still quite openly still working through that. One way that we do that is manually through our WhatsApp chat. So literally, what our members do is they'll be like, "Hey, does anyone know someone in IP? I need an IP attorney." Right? That was like one of our latest inquiries. And what's great about that is there are people who are IP lawyers in our chat or are connected to someone who is. So then we're able to make those warm intros. And, it's even better than Google because you can look things up and you could send in an email or fill out a form and you might not necessarily get exactly what you might not get like exactly what you're looking for. But through, HQ, you're able to not only get what you need, but hopefully make a new friend along the way.
I am in that chat. Thank you again for adding me to that. And it is always buzzing. There's always people chatting on there. It's great communication. And it's exactly what you were just saying. People ask questions, answers come back, new connections made. It's great. So thanks for putting me on there. How about Create Her?
So it's basically the same thing, but specifically to help support projects or founders in what they're building and amplifying that. So one of our core values is to provide resources that might not necessarily be accessible, right? So resources include funding, network, education, warm intros. So when it comes to Create Her, it's like empowering people who are building in this space, providing them with I guess like approved vendors or people that like we've all worked with personally or have good connections with, and being able to pass those along. I think one thing that I love about Web3 is that there's definitely a mindset of abundance that just because like for you to win doesn't mean that I need to fail. And that like if one of us if one of us wins, then we all win, right? Like I will always um and what's great about that is like we are attracting other women just like that. So with every new connection that we bring into the fold, that means our resources just like exponentially grow, and it's just really great for everybody involved.
A rising tide, right? Floats all boats. So
Yes, yes,
we're
I
in
love
this
that.
together.
Exactly.
And you're on the path to tokenization. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. So that is definitely something we want to work on. Again, one of our core values is getting women paid in this space, and tokenization is a huge part of Web3, right? So we are figuring that out. We actually applied to Seed Club. It didn't work out, but totally invite everyone else to check it out. It's a really great DAO. And essentially, anyone who's trying to figure out tokenomics, it's a great, they have incredible resources there. And again, like, that's really the magic of Web3 is be able to find those synergies and, being able to pass them along to people who really need it. And then they get to pay it forward.
Um, so I don't want to put you on the spot here. And it's okay if not. But are you familiar with CharmVerse at all?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Because I was going to say, as you're moving towards this DAO model, and you're talking about tokens, we have token gating capabilities, or you can assign bounties to tasks to pay people out for certain work and all sorts of stuff. So if you're curious and ever want a demo or anything, we should chat after this, and I'd be happy to show off some of what we do.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, honestly, that's kind of how we got here, right? Is we again, like I had worked previously with Chris, and Chris actually the first time I met him was at the Art Basel event in Miami a year ago, and we hope to have a reunion, him, Candace, and I, down at Art Basel again this year. So I'm really looking forward to that. And one, he's absolutely brilliant, right? Like, you know that. And so when he was talking about CharmVerse, we definitely saw instant synergies with what you guys are building. And honestly, like, who wouldn't have a Web3 management platform tools is like what everyone's looking for.
Well, we love to hear that. And yes, 100% agree with you on Chris. Like I said, we're so happy to have him on the team. He was one of the members that came to Bogota with us. And it was just great to be able to pick his brain for a week and hear his insights on stuff. And yeah, brilliant. So I know he'll be there this year. Are you based in Miami?
No, so I'm actually based in New Jersey. I go pretty often to New York for work events, and then I do travel for work. But we're actually in the middle of relocating to the DC DMV area.
Oh, nice.
Hmm.
Awesome. A little bit warmer too.
Yes. Yeah. So apparently, so right now my husband, he already started work down in Maryland. So we have two boys. So we always call him at, at school drop off and at pickup. Just to check in, and then at night to say goodnight. But this morning there's frost in New Jersey, so the boys were sharing like, "Daddy, there's frost today. There was frost yesterday," and he's like, "Well, it is 38 degrees in Maryland and it was 35 in New Jersey." So we were talking about that. I was like, it's a little bit warmer, but not by much.
Yeah, not as much as I would expect because I've
I
been
know.
down there. Yeah, I would
I
expect
was
it to be
really disappointed
50.
when I heard that.
Hopefully, it's a fluke.
I hope so, because I mean, I've been in New Jersey my whole life. This is definitely something I'm like working through. We've always, my husband and I actually are high school sweethearts as well, and we celebrated our 10-year anniversary, and it's always been in the, I guess, like family planning. That we would at some point relocate. We just always imagined it would be when we were younger. So I'm like, I don't know, I'm 37 years old now, and I was like, oh my God, like I have to make new friends.
Right? It's a big change.
Yeah.
It's a big change. It's not as easy to meet people when you're not like at a bar all the time
Yeah.
or in school or that kind of stuff. Um, so while her house is all about like providing tools and education, it's not all just about business, as we discussed. You also focus a lot on self-care in your values, as well as diversity and inclusion. So tell me more about why you decided to make these things part of your core values.
Because it's just better for everyone involved, really. Like, so self-care, one, this comes really personal to me. I actually, the reason why I'm even in Web3, I used to be a nurse. I was a nurse for over 13 years. Then the pandemic happened and I was actually hospitalized at the end of October in 2020. And it was because I wasn't taking care of myself. I was admitted for sleep deprivation and PTSD essentially. And I just kept putting it off, putting it off. And at the end of the day, like, because I didn't take care of myself, like, I really hurt my family. And I never want to go back to that place. Right. So from that moment on, I've always approached everything that I've worked on, um, with like the idea of like, okay, well, how do I take care of myself and still succeed? Because a big part of success is not just, how much money you have in the bank or, the title that you have. It's like at the end of the day, like, are you happy? Are you healthy? Do you have love in your life, like in one way or another? And that's definitely something that Alexa, Candace, and I are bringing into her house. And like, that's exactly what we want, people to walk away from her house with. And part of that is diversity and inclusivity because when it comes to spaces that marginalized communities don't necessarily have like a strong presence or impact in, like knowing that there are other people who are who look like you, who are experiencing the same kind of things that you're experiencing or come from the same backgrounds culturally or location wise or experience, it makes such a big difference to know that like if someone else can succeed who looks like you, that you are successful as well. And again, like from my point of view, women of color, mothers of color, were the ones who were most impacted by the pandemic, including myself. So I found incredible amount of success, professionally and personally in Web3. And I want other women and mothers of color to see that like it's possible for them, that there are incredible opportunities in this space for them, and they just have to try.
I love all of that. Yeah, with the diversity and inclusion, like we said in the beginning, this is a new space. Let's bring everyone in here and make them feel welcome and give them the opportunity. Especially coming off the heels of a pandemic when a lot of people just met so many hardships. And then the self care is something that I think across all industries, but I could see specifically in Web3 that is not talked about. Because it's a new industry, everyone's just working their asses off to make it work, to learn, to find that job, to meet those people, to go to the conferences. And it's one of those you kind of always need to be online, on when you're talking to people, on at these conferences. And it's easy to forget to like stop for a minute and breathe and sleep and put the phone away. So I very much appreciate that you are pushing that agenda as well, because I think it is often forgotten. And like I said, not just Web3, but everywhere. Everyone's just trying to make ends meet and do what they need to do. So thank you for pushing that as well. I appreciate that. Tell me how you initially got into Web3.
So I initially got into Web3 through Clubhouse. Like I will always be bullish on Clubhouse. I know it's slower than it was during the pandemic because people are out there living, living in real life now. But I made incredible connections, and people, and it was like my first. It was really the vehicle that empowered me to be an entrepreneur, and it was because I met other incredible women who were either entrepreneurs or just starting on their, on their own journey. And that is like pretty much like the inspiration to what Her House is, right? It's knowing that I like had that kind of community around me through Clubhouse. And because of that, like I was able to, leverage skill sets that I had in nursing in a way that I didn't really think about, right? And I was able to find a lot of success in digital marketing and community building. And I actually ended up being a content producer for Lori Siegel, who was a former senior tech correspondent for CNN. And so back when she first got there, she was an associate producer, and she was like really like she wanted to share, like she had sent the story about Facebook when Facebook was like, hanging out in Mark Zuckerberg's college dorm, to her editors, and they were like, no, like no one's gonna care about this, like it's just a fad. But she was like really insistent about it, right? So she was the one who followed and created the tech beat startup back at CNN, 10 years ago. And so she's like really well connected in the Web2 space. So I ended up joining her team as a content producer. And that's where I really learned about tech, about startups, and then Web3. And so from there, it like really piqued my interest. And, the audience that I had built, the skill sets, the team, the interdisciplinary teams that I built on Clubhouse, I was able to translate those skills into the Web3 space because, of course, like what is Web3 if it is not a community of people looking to build something incredible together?
I love people's stories of how they got into this space because they're always so different, and they, to come from nursing to end up in Web3, it's just that jump that you don't think about, right? So I love it. It's always has to be one of my questions. So we're coming up on our time. I don't want to take up too much of your day. What's next for Her House? What should we be keeping an eye out for? Events, conferences?
All of the above. So I'll drop a little bit of alpha here. This was something that was, again, always in the works. And because of the success that we got from, our Who's Hiring in Web3 event today, it was just that confirmation that we needed to just kind of go ahead with this. We are planning on hosting Web3 job fairs. And it'll be a traveling job fair because a lot of our team end up going to the conferences, and we've built out so many incredible relationships with a lot of Web3 companies and the teams that are building, all throughout the industry. And I just think it would be really fun and great to be able to, create that kind of space where it's networking for a purpose, and, like, more importantly, making sure that women have access to opportunities to get paid in this space.
Fantastic. And how can we stay apprised of your journey and or become a part of the Her House community?
Uh, well, with anything in Web3, follow us on Twitter. That's definitely the main way. You could follow Her House. It's at Her House _IO on Twitter. You can follow me. And we are building out our LinkedIn presence as well. So I'm always excited to make new friends on any platform. So
I love it.
definitely, yeah, slide into the DMs on my account or on Her House, and we'd be happy to, collaborate, find you a job, or make the kind of connection that you're looking for.
Awesome. And the way I like to end these interviews is describe the rest of your life in 5 words.
Oh,
I know.
okay.
Just a light question to send you off.
That's 5 words. Okay. Oh, oh no, that's a lot. Oh, oh no, 5 words. I. Oh wait. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
I
This is
know,
like
I
a
know.
year
You know what?
list.
I feel like everyone misses this question. I
It
should put it
does
like
because it's
at the
only at
top.
the end. um, I would guess like
How about this? I'll do a little wrap up and you
okay.
think about this. How about
Thank
that? I'll
you.
give you a beat. Listeners, thanks so much for joining us. Please check out Her House. They're doing amazing things at Her House _. IO, or follow Caroline CB Geraghty on Twitter as well. Caroline, I wish you the best of luck in DC, and I hope it's warmer than it is in Jersey.
I hope
Um,
so too. Thank you. Okay,
did you?
okay. So
All
I
right, you
think I
ready?
got it. Okay. Success is a holistic experience.
Perfect. See, you just needed
Yes.
a minute. You just
Thank you
needed a
for
minute.
that.
Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad Chris isn't listening today, but I thank him for connecting us. You've been an absolute pleasure. And I hope that you and I get to meet in real life one of these days at a conference or an event. So let's stay in touch, and please reach out if you need a demo as you guys get closer to that DAO space with Her House. Are you muted? Caroline, you're muted. I can't hear you, but I'm going to wrap the space, and thank you everyone for listening. And yeah, stop by next week for another Twitter space. We'll see you soon. Bye. Bye, Caroline.